It starts with fire. At 02:18 a.m., the Venezuelan coast glows orange as a chain of explosions rips through oil storage tanks near Puerto La Cruz. Satellite feeds capture plumes so bright they're mistaken for missile launches. For hours, no one knows who's responsible. Government channels call it sabotage. The opposition blames corruption and neglect. But intercepted radio chatter tells another story. A voice calm, military, precise. Phase 1 complete. Control the pier. Secure the tankers. By sunrise, the truth surfaces. A rogue alliance of officers and smugglers calling itself La Costa has seized the port. Their leader, former Navy Captain Diego Ramirez, declares over a pirate broadcast, "We are not a cartel. We are the true Venezuela." His men occupy fuel depots, radar towers, and even a coastal frigate left under repair. Within hours, they control half of the nation's refined oil export. Caracas calls it terrorism, but in the barrios and along the coastal towns, locals cheer. For them, La Costa is less villain than savior, promising jobs, fuel, and stability where the state gave none. Their propaganda flows slick as oil, polished videos, drone footage, flags painted on tankers. The message spreads faster than the flames. Venezuela is no longer ruled from the capital, but from the coast. In Washington, the reaction is disbelief turning to dread. Analysts at Southcom study the data streams, not narcotics routes this time, but maritime traffic. Tankers rerouting under fake manifests. Drones purchased through shell companies in Dubai. Russian-made engines, Iranian guidance kits. Whoever funds La Costa isn't just local, it's a network. By 10 a.m., the Pentagon issues an internal flash brief. Hybrid cartel formation with military capability. Estimated 2,000 armed personnel. Control of 3 oil terminals and 5 fast attack vessels. The conclusion is stark. Venezuela has birthed the world's first energy cartel state. At sea, the USS Monterey, a Ticonderoga-class cruiser patrolling the Caribbean, receives new orders. Move closer to the Paria Gulf, establish maritime observation, but do not engage. Officially, it's a security mission. Unofficially, it's containment. The Navy knows the risk. One exchange of fire near Venezuelan waters could spiral into open conflict. Meanwhile, inside the burned-out remains of the Puerto La Cruz terminal, cameras show masked men directing cleanup. They wear mismatched uniforms, but their movements are crisp, military. On their shoulders, patches bear a stylized wave and lightning bolt, the emblem of La Costa. One of them, his voice filtered through static, speaks to local journalists. The oil belongs to the people, not the thieves in Caracas. Behind him, fuel trucks roll out under armed escort. By evening, global markets react. Crude prices spike 6%. Insurance for Caribbean shipping doubles overnight. Headlines scream, "Cartel coup in Venezuela." The OAS convenes an emergency session. Half the delegates walk out when Russia's ambassador accuses the United States of plotting regime change. And still, Washington hesitates. The memory of past interventions hangs heavy. No one wants another endless quagmire under tropical rain. But as more footage emerges, drones circling captured tankers, soldiers pledging allegiance to La Costa's flag, hesitation feels like weakness. At Southcom headquarters in Florida, screens flicker with live satellite imagery. One feed shows a line of tankers leaving port under new registration numbers. Another shows heat signatures of fast boats clustering near offshore pipelines. The operations chief leans forward and murmurs, "They're militarizing the oil lanes." The admiral in command gives a single order: prepare the intercept plans, quietly. In Caracas, the government vows to reclaim the coast within 48 hours. Yet its own officers defect faster than its troops can deploy. Army units sent to retake the terminals never arrive. They change flags halfway down the highway. The president's voice on state television trembles as he declares a national emergency. Outside the capital, the night sky burns again. Another depot explodes, this time under anti-air fire. La Costa claims the government struck first. The government swears it didn't fire at all. For Washington, that's the moment the line blurs beyond repair. A cartel now controls a navy, drones, and oil exports, and the United States may have to choose between standing by or stepping in. The war for Venezuela's coast has just begun. War 10 local time. The Caribbean is deceptively calm. Beneath the surface of that perfect blue, a war is starting to take shape. One with no declarations, no uniforms, and no front lines. In the darkness west of Trinidad, the USS Monterey glides silently through the water. Its radar arrays track the movement of 2 Venezuelan-flagged tankers that have switched off their transponders. The ships aren't carrying crude officially sanctioned by Caracas. They're carrying the stolen product of the Costa cartel, reflagged under Panamanian licenses and bound for black market buyers. Inside the Monterey's Combat Information Center, green lights glow on operators' faces as encrypted orders scroll across their screens. Intercept vessels if they approach restricted waters. Non-lethal measures authorized. The officers understand the unspoken rule. This isn't a raid, it's a message. The United States wants to make the cartel visible to the world before it grows untouchable. At 0432, radar contact tightens. 2 tankers, 2 escort boats, approaching the 200-mile exclusion zone near U.S. protected trade routes. The captain of the Monterey gives the order. Signal flares. Warnings broadcast in Spanish and English. The response crackles back over the open channel. Laughter, then static, then a voice that is unmistakably military. American warship, you have no authority here. The coast belongs to Costa. Minutes later, small blips split off from the tankers. Fast attack skiffs, 4 of them, moving at 40 knots. The Monterey's bridge goes tense. Drones lift from the destroyer's deck, infrared cameras painting the night with ghostly red trails. Over the radio, another command filters through. Maintain distance. Do not fire unless fired upon. The crew watches in silence as the skiffs draw closer, lights flashing in deliberate taunt. Then, as quickly as they came, they turn away. An intimidation dance, recorded, streamed, meant for propaganda. By dawn, that footage floods social media. Grainy clips show Costa patrol boats circling a U.S. warship, their operators waving rifles and laughing. The cartel releases a slick, edited version hours later. Slow motion, heroic music, the caption, "The Caribbean is ours." In Washington, the optics are toxic. News outlets play the clip on repeat. Commentators demand action. The White House scrambles to craft a line between deterrence and overreaction. Trump's statement is short and fiery. They steal oil. They threaten our ships. They'll learn what happens when you mess with America's Navy. The Pentagon's response is more measured but no less serious. Surveillance doubles. Drones fan out over the Venezuelan coast, mapping every depot, airstrip, and communication node under Costa control. Analysts begin noticing familiar patterns. Encrypted signals bouncing through servers in Moscow and Tehran. Cargo manifests tied to Iranian ports. Spare parts for drones traced to black market suppliers from Eastern Europe. It's no longer a local insurgency. It's a proxy network. By afternoon, intelligence confirms what the world suspected. Russian technicians are embedded with the cartel, repairing captured radar systems. Iranian advisors are training drone crews. Caracas denies it, but satellite imagery says otherwise. The port of Puerto La Cruz hums with activity, trucks unloading crates marked in Cyrillic, containers sealed under false manifests. At 13:45, the first drone attack hits. A swarm of 10 commercial quadcopters rigged with small warheads descends on a Venezuelan Navy base still loyal to the government. The explosions are surgical. Fuel tanks and radar dishes erupt in fire. Costa claims responsibility within minutes. For the first time, a cartel has executed an airstrike. Across the hemisphere, military planners stare at the footage in disbelief. Cartels bomb police convoys. Yes, they shoot rivals in city streets. But this, coordinated drone warfare, is something else entirely. A template for the future. By evening, American warships tighten their patrols, and U.S. drones hover higher, watching every kilometer of coastline. Diplomats plead for calm. Commanders know calm is gone. Costa now controls 3 ports, half the country's refined fuel, and the attention of every intelligence agency in the world. And somewhere in the smoke of the burning terminals, Captain Diego Ramirez stands before a captured camera and says the line that will echo for weeks. You used to call us a cartel, now call us a nation. ChatGPT сказал. 03:00 local time. The Gulf of Paria glows faintly from the burning refineries, the new capital of a nation that was never supposed to exist. The world now calls it the Oil Coast. Satellite feeds flicker with the movements of La Costa patrol boats, drones, and tankers. The United States calls it something simpler, a threat that cannot be ignored. Deep in the operations wing of Southcom in Florida, the new plan is already underway. It has no name, no flag, no congressional authorization. It exists only in encrypted channels and whispered code. The mission is surgical. Remove Diego Ramirez, the former Navy officer turned cartel president, without sparking a war with Russia or Venezuela. The first phase begins at dawn. A surveillance drone, disguised as a weather UAV, drifts above the Venezuelan coastline. Below it, a convoy of black SUVs moves toward a seaside villa near the city of Cumaná, Ramirez's new command center. The cartel's intelligence chief, a former Air Force colonel, believes they are untouchable. They have Russian jammers, Iranian drones, and an army paid in gold and oil. What they don't know is that 2,000 miles away, in a windowless control room, American cyber operators are inside their cameras, their phones, their GPS feeds. At 04:15, the U.S. Navy SEAL team known only as Spectre 9 launches from a submarine 12 miles offshore. Their orders are not to capture. They are to end the coup before it hardens into legitimacy. As the team swims toward shore, U.S. satellites capture a sudden development. An Il-76 cargo plane has landed at Barcelona airfield. Its manifest lists agricultural equipment, but the heat signatures tell another story. Crates containing Pantsir air defense systems, Russian-made. The timing isn't coincidence. Moscow knows something is about to happen. On the deck of the USS Monterey, commanders debate whether to abort. The risk is clear. If Russian contractors die in a covert U.S. strike, the Kremlin will frame it as direct aggression. But before Washington can decide, the line goes dark. Spectre 9 is already in motion. Inside the villa, Ramirez studies a map lit by a single lamp. His lieutenants argue over shipments, drone routes, and the next refinery to seize. The air smells of oil and salt. Then, without warning, the lights die. Power outage. A hum of confusion. Then a sound like thunder underwater. Muffled, close. The first breach charge. The Americans move fast and silent. Infrared goggles cut through smoke. One guard drops, then another. Ramirez runs for the radio room, shouting orders. Hold the line. Hold the coast. He reaches for the mic just as the door explodes inward. A flashbang turns the world white. The feed from the villa blinks once, twice, then cuts. Minutes later, radio intercepts from Caracas pick up a single phrase. La Costa leader neutralized. But the confirmation never comes. No body, no photos, no proof. Just silence and fire. At 06:00, Russian state media announces that American mercenaries have attacked a Venezuelan government facility, killing civilian contractors. The Kremlin demands an emergency UN session. Iran echoes the claim. In Washington, officials deny everything, but the footage tells its own story. Night vision clips, masked figures, muzzle flashes, smoke. Enough to inflame, not enough to identify. Within hours, Russian private military contractors, technicians, the same ones seen at the ports, begin mobilizing. Armed patrol boats bearing no flags appear off the Venezuelan coast. Drones, Iranian-built Mohajer 6 models, start circling above the Gulf. In the Caribbean, U.S. ships go to red alert. The quiet, deniable war has become visible. For the first time since the Cold War, Russian and American vessels track each other across the Caribbean Sea. Each side insists it is only protecting assets. Each prepares for the possibility that this protection could turn at any moment into the first direct naval clash of the century. By nightfall, something worse happens. La Costa's encrypted channels come back online. A distorted voice, familiar, broadcasts on all frequencies. "You thought you killed me, but I am the tide, and the tide always returns." The signal is traced to a ship moving east, a captured Venezuelan frigate, now bearing the black flag of La Costa. And just like that, the war for Venezuela's coast begins again. 05:45 local time. The sun creeps over the Caribbean, painting the sea gold. But the light does nothing to calm the tension. 200 nautical miles off the Venezuelan coast, the USS Monterrey's radar locks onto an unfamiliar contact. A Venezuelan Navy frigate moving erratically, broadcasting no identification, its transponder dead. Its call sign doesn't match any known vessel. Then the signal flares. A pirate broadcast. A deep voice, distorted by static, fills the frequencies. "You thought you ended La Costa, but we sail now as a nation, not of land, but of the sea." Every operator aboard the Monterey goes still. The contact's course is clear, heading straight for the exclusion zone where U.S. ships maintain their blockade. The AI threat matrix tags the frigate as hostile. The captain orders a hail. No response. The frigate keeps coming. At 06:02, the Monterey launches a drone to visually confirm. The feed shows a sight that defies belief. The Venezuelan Navy frigate, General Sublet, long thought destroyed in port, now flying a black flag with a white lightning bolt. La Costa has not only survived, it has taken to the ocean as a floating state. On the frigate's deck, camera lenses glint in the sun. They're streaming live. Hundreds of thousands of viewers across Latin America watch the feed titled "The Cartel That Defied the World." Diesel smoke churns behind the ship. Around it, smaller boats, fast skiffs armed with mounted guns, swarm like insects. The Monterey's captain signals again. "Unknown vessel, you are entering restricted waters. Alter course immediately." No reply, just static, then a single sentence. "If America blocks the coast, America will burn." The order comes down from Fleet Command. Shadow, but do not engage. The Monterey turns to parallel the frigate, keeping distance, radars tracking every move. But at 06:20, the La Costa vessel breaks formation. Its deck gun pivots. A flash. A round splashes into the sea just short of the U.S. cruiser's bow. Now there is no ambiguity. "Hostile fire confirmed," says the weapons officer. "Permission to return fire?" "Stand by," the captain replies, voice tight. "Command authorization pending." Seconds stretch into minutes. Washington wants to confirm. Every decision carries the weight of escalation. A single missile could trigger a regional war. But the sea has its own tempo, and La Costa doesn't wait. The frigate fires again, this time closer. Shrapnel sprays across the waves. "Fire control, engage target." The Monterey's forward deck erupts. A Standard Missile 6 arcs into the morning sky, slicing through cloud. Seconds later, a bloom of orange tears open the horizon. The enemy frigate shatters, its midsection splitting in two. The explosion is caught by La Costa's live stream. Millions of viewers watch as their black flag ship vanishes in smoke. For a moment, there is silence on every frequency. Then another voice, a younger one, urgent, desperate, bursts through encrypted channels. "This is Command La Costa. You may sink our ships, but not our cause. Every port is ours now." And indeed, in that same hour, chaos blooms along the Venezuelan coast. Armed men storm refineries. Shootouts break out at checkpoints. Drones strike military depots near Maracaibo. What was once a single cartel is now a hydra. Dozens of militias, financed by oil and rage, erupting across the nation. Washington scrambles to contain the narrative. Official statements call the sinking a defensive action. Moscow and Tehran call it an act of war. Beijing stays silent, but its tankers quietly reroute south, away from the conflict, and toward Cuba. By midday, the Caribbean trade lanes look like a battlefield map. U.S. destroyers form a cordon around the Paria Gulf. Venezuelan loyalists flee to Curaçao. Russian advisors appear on local news, standing beside damaged radar stations. The world watches in disbelief. The United States Navy, the world's strongest fleet, has just fired the first missile in a war not declared, against an enemy that technically does not exist. And as the smoke drifts west, a chilling truth settles over every briefing room from Washington to Moscow. The age of traditional wars is over. The next global conflict won't begin with armies or flags. It will begin with a cartel, a drone, and a ship that refuses to turn. 0740 local time. The Caribbean has never looked like this before. Satellite images show oil fires blooming along Venezuela's coast, warships scattered like chess pieces, tankers rerouting through Cuban waters. The sea that once shimmered with trade now glows red with burning fuel. In Washington, the mood is not victory, it's realization. The USS Monterey destroyed a rogue frigate, but instead of calming the region, it detonated a global fault line. Moscow calls it American piracy. Russian state TV plays the footage of the explosion on repeat, dubbing it proof of U.S. aggression against sovereign seas. Within 12 hours, the Russian Navy announces a training deployment to the Caribbean. The ships are old, but the message is ancient. You are not the only power here anymore. At the same time, Beijing moves with precision. China's foreign ministry proposes an international stabilization mission, a peacekeeping flotilla to protect energy routes and restore order. But everyone in the Pentagon knows what that means. Chinese destroyers sailing alongside Venezuelan oil tankers under the guise of humanitarian aid. By the next morning, satellite imagery confirms it. 2 Chinese-type Aero-5 2D destroyers leaving Hainan Island. Destination unclear, but path unmistakable, across the Pacific toward the Panama approach. The dominoes are falling. In Caracas, chaos consumes the streets. The government has lost control of the coast. La Costa militias, now fragmented but still lethal, fight one another over refineries. Russian mercenaries guard radar stations. Iranian drones patrol the skies. The nation's oil, once its lifeline, has become its curse. Inside a bunker beneath the Miraflores Palace, the Venezuelan president appears on national TV for less than 5 minutes. His voice trembles as he blames foreign invaders for destroying the navy and promises that the revolution will endure. Hours later, he's seen boarding a helicopter. Destination unknown. At sea, the U.S. Navy expands its blockade. 4 destroyers and 2 cruisers now ring the Venezuelan coastline. Admiral Hayes, the Pacific commander temporarily reassigned to lead the task force, knows the risk. 1 Russian frigate entering the area, 1 Chinese drone overflight, and this turns into a war no one planned but everyone feared. The Admiral's voice is calm over the comms. We hold the line. No provocation, but if they aim their radars, we lock back. Thousands of miles away in Beijing, a quiet conversation takes place between Chinese and Russian defense envoys. Both agree on one thing: the United States must not control the Caribbean's oil corridor. The Cold War never ended, they decide. It just changed currencies. By nightfall, Russian supply ships depart Murmansk. Chinese vessels cross the Pacific equator. NATO convenes an emergency summit, but half the members are paralyzed. They fear another forever conflict, another drain, another Vietnam with better cameras. Markets collapse. Crude oil hits $180 a barrel. Internet blackouts ripple through Latin America. Hacker groups loyal to La Costa flood U.S. news sites with footage of burning ports and the ghostly silhouette of their black flag. Their message is simple, brutal, viral. You cannot blockade a tide. At 23-year, a U.S. Navy P-8 Poseidon aircraft flying patrol north of Trinidad picks up radar contacts. 6 vessels, unknown origin, no transponders, sailing straight into the exclusion zone. Command prepares for identification. The transmission they receive freezes the room. It's a recorded voice, one they thought silenced. This is Captain Ramirez of the Free Oil Fleet. We return to finish what you started. The Monterey readies defensive posture. Drones take off, floodlights flare, alarms echo across steel decks. Somewhere between the static and the sea, the Admiral mutters the line that will define this era. The world's next war won't start in the Pacific or the Baltics. It'll start right here, in the Caribbean, over barrels of stolen oil. The ocean is silent for now, but every sonar ping, every radar sweep, every movement of a ship is another heartbeat in a world that has forgotten peace. Because tonight the map of power is being redrawn, not by nations, but by men who learned that control doesn't come from land anymore. It comes from the sea. And the tide is already turning.